Everybody, welcome to Super Agents Live. Toby Salgado right here. Thanks for tuning in. If you are brand new to the show, I appreciate you finding it. And I truly hope that you find some value in this. And what we do on this show, I talk with top producing real estate agents, coaches, and authors, and I find out how they did it. I find out what they struggled with and how they got over it. Now, today it's an episode extremely interesting. This guy, I gotta say, this guy is probably in terms of transactions, the most successful guy that's ever been on the show. I will tell you that this is genuinely one of the nicest guys that has ever. This guy's the kind of guy that you listen to and you're like, oh man, I want to hang out with him. Like you just feel like he would never say anything bad about anybody else. I mean, I should model him. And look, here's the deal. I mean, he's got a really interesting background. Now, in terms of his success, this guy is the number one agent in the world for Remax. 2013, he did 1,275 transactions. This is the unicorn. This is the guy that everybody talks about, but nobody's actually met. Well, now I did, and now you did. In terms of just interesting background, this guy was a pianist. He played piano, and from playing piano, obviously talented, he sold 10 million records. Right? He's like the Eminem of piano players. And here's what we talk about on the show. I think I just dated myself with that Eminem thing. Anyhow, we talk about mindset shifting. How he went. He managed to graduate from Notre Dame, selling 10 million records, and then all of a sudden going into real estate. So it's something that you need 3 weeks of training for. So how did he shift his mindset with that? We talk about, one of the things he did was he went and started working with investors. He tells us how he found those investors to work with. We talk about why you should find a niche, why you should not be afraid of risk. And I know a lot of people struggle with the risk thing. He has a big team, and we talk about how to recruit, how to build company culture, and how to build a team with legs, man, both in terms of retention and talent, and really why everyone should develop a listening habit. And we also talk about, why, people, as NAR says that most agents will wash out in 1 year. And we talk about why people wash out. And I don't think you'll be surprised to what he thinks. So before we get there, let's talk. I want to tell you guys something that I'm working on. I won't tell the whole Genesis story because it's too long, but I wanted to write. I think it's going to help a lot of people. But I'm writing it's going to be a book and a little bit of a product. There's going to be accompanying videos with it, and it's basically like, I'm not sure what it's going to be entitled, but it's going to be your first year or your first 90 days, or it's how to develop your first 20 million. But basically, man, I go over everything that I hear people struggle with all the time. What business entity should you form? Choose a broker. How do you do that? Why? What do you think about? Should you join a team? What you should look for if you are going to join a team. In terms of having a web presence, where both personally, like what does that look like in terms of having a web presence? And then for your company, what does having a web presence look like? And listen, it's more than just having a website, right? People think, oh, I'll throw up a website and Google knows about me. Yeah, not really. So I talk about in this product a bunch of bullet points for all those things. We get into what some of the free, very strong strategies, and I get super detailed. I have this killer open house strategy. And I think that, I encourage everybody to start out with that. So it's not out yet. I don't know what it's going to be priced at, but it's going to be a book. And I think I may on the back of it, put in my 50-page ebook on how to sell. But I think, and then I think I'm going to do some videos around it. So if you're interested, send me an email, and let me know, and maybe I'll give you some early bird pricing on it. Until then, every single episode has a sponsor. Today's sponsor is the radio arm. If you are a top 10 agent in your market and you want to do radio and jump up to the top 3, top 5, number 1, let me know. Radio can do it. Go to our website, superagentslive.com. Check out the Dominate with Radio tab. And by the way, listen, if you don't want to miss, I'm starting to send out emails for every single episode. So if you don't want to miss future tips and tactics like you're going to hear with today's guest, what you're going to want to do two things. One, go to the website, join the membership, or download the book. Give me your email address so I can let you know what's going on with future things. Number two, it would be awesome. You want to subscribe to the show so that it just shows up on your tablet, it just shows up on your phone. So do those two things, and if you love what you hear, subscribe to iTunes. Not subscribe. Give us a rating or review. It's free. All right. Hey, let's get today's episode. Welcome to Super Agents Live. This is the one place where you can come and hear the most successful people in real estate. You'll hear how these super agents built their businesses, how they stay productive, and how they stay motivated. Who am I? My name's Toby Salgado, and I made my first $1 million in real estate. Yeah. And I'm your host for the next 30 minutes while we talk to yet another amazing real estate entrepreneur. Stay tuned.
Let's go! Yeah!
Today's super agent is a really interesting guy for a lot of reasons. Number one, he is a pianist. That means he plays the piano, and he sold over 10 million records. And after being on every single television channel that existed, he went on to sell real estate. Now, this guy has an incredible track record. He became, he launched his company and he got his license in 2003, launched his his company in 2005, and literally became the number one team in Minnesota from 2004 to this year, 2014, and then became the number one team in the world for RE/MAX. And he's done something that I did not know was possible. He crossed that mythical 1,000 transaction line. Last year, 2013, he and his team closed 1,275 transactions. I'm absolutely thrilled to welcome Ryan Oneil. Hey, Ryan, thanks for taking the time out today, man.
Josh, thanks so much for the opportunity and the kind invite to join you. I'm a big fan of your work, Toby. Appreciate everything you're doing for all the real estate agents, brokers, and companies. You're doing a fantastic job.
Awesome. Thank you, man. So listen, again, you have this very, very varied career. I mean, tell us about it. Look, I want to know about you and I want to know about your business. So maybe just jump in there. Tell us a little bit about yourself and maybe what is it like selling 10 million records? And is that gold? I mean,
yeah, you know what? I grew up in Minnesota and am the youngest of five Oneils, five Oneil kids, and one of my older brothers I went to college with, went to Notre Dame. He was a senior at Notre Dame when I was a freshman, and we had always played piano growing up, had a lot of interest in music and the arts, and as my brother Tim was graduating, he was a marketing major at Notre Dame, and he really wanted to continue on with his music and to find ways to kind of bring his music sort of mainstream, if you will. And from my perspective, when I graduated from Notre Dame as well, I wanted to kind of work with him and work together, and so we were fortunate enough to meet a lot of really good people, a lot of really good contacts that enabled us to sort of sell our music, our relaxing piano music, through a variety of different outlets. Over time, it was absolutely a very full-time job for both myself and my brother Tim. But just for us, it was really the music and kind of the art that drove us, and sort of a lot of my brother Tim's marketing know-how that allowed us to kind of move forward and start selling some records.
Well, I mean, so in your childhood, and I normally don't get into this, but I'm honestly interested. Did you, number one, it sounds like you have a very close family. If you went to the same school as your brother and then you wanted to work with him, I mean, did you have a very strong family? And was it, were your evenings at night, sitting around the fireplace with you and your brother or all the kids playing music? And I mean, were you the Von Trapps?
No, you know what, Toby? We actually. Both of our parents very supportive. In fact, my father, Dad's no longer living, but my dad was a longtime small town attorney. And in fact, when Dad first got out of law school, He and my mom, they had just gotten married, obviously just a couple starting out. They really don't have any money, very little funds. But my dad goes out and buys this upright piano that they end up delivering to their little apartment in St. Paul, Minnesota. And my mom, who's a very practical Minnesotan, says, Bob, my dad, what in the world are you thinking? Buying up? My dad didn't play piano at all to begin with, but he just, I don't know if it was a little foreshadowing, if you will, of, hey, you know what, this is something I want our family to kind of be involved with. And so we all took lessons over time. Our parents were not strict in the sense of trying to ram it down our throats by any means, but it was kind of a fun thing, over time, again, with us taking lessons and, not really thinking, hey, is this going to lead to something professionally, but just enjoying it, and I think, that was probably my dad's original thought when buying that upright piano.
Interesting. Okay. So, again, you and your brother and maybe your whole family, you took lessons, but there's to do that. I mean, that has to be somewhat innate, I think. I mean, to be able to play well enough to sell 10-minute records. Now, if I think about your brain, Ryan, artists are sort of on the left, I think. I'm not sure. I mean, the artists are one way, and business people are different. Like, how have you been able to blend this artistic sort of, musical piece of yourself and then take it into business and just dominate?
Yeah, I think as so many of your listeners, those who are in real estate, those who have been successful, had high levels of success. Real estate for me always has and always will be about people, and people in a variety of different ways. And from my perspective, working in the music business and spending time selling some of our CDs, whether it was various trade shows where you're out and about talking to customers on a daily basis, to we would sell a lot of our music on QVC, so going out onto QVC and spending time talking, whether it's in front of the camera or with the hosts on QVC, it really is the sales aspect of it was such a relationship based angle that it was all about, again, about meeting people, being good to people, doing, creating good relationships that were, that were good for both parties, that sort of lifted everybody's boat. And I think for me, it was a little bit of a natural transition into real estate from a sales angle. Mm-hmm. And I think both businesses, I mean, it may sound somewhat odd to some of your listeners, but they do complement each other, because at the end of the day, music, though it's different, is really about, the customer and, the person listening to your music and enjoying it and that type of thing. Yeah.
I mean, I certainly see a overlap in terms of a skill set, but there's something, there's your skill set, but then there's, again, for you were on television, you were on QVC over 100 times, right? So, I'm sure people who kind of knew who you were, you were a little bit of a celebrity. I mean, and you obviously 10 million records, you have to be making some kind of money off that. And then going from like this celebrity personality, selling records, and then starting at the bottom in real estate. Now, a lot of people, you and I know real estate is a very serious business. You can do very well for yourself and all that stuff. But a lot of people would lump real estate agents and used car salesmen in the same group. I mean,
absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, so was that like, again, I'm thinking about just sort of your mindset. Was that a challenge?
It actually was, Toby. I mean, starting out, I think all of us can be our own worst critic, and we can be so hard on ourselves in a variety of ways. And, for me, when I was starting out, I'm thinking, okay, I just graduated from the University of Notre Dame. My father, my mom and dad spent a lot of money, to send me through school. and I'm working, with my brother Tim doing this piano thing. But I always had an interest in real estate and kind of specifically investment property as well, starting out and learning about it. But I thought to myself, okay, I just went through, a 4-year institution. My parents spent all this money, and now I'm going to tell my dad, hey, I'm thinking of getting into real estate, being a real estate agent. That takes 3 weeks of class,
right,
and a couple little quick tests, and voila, you're a real estate agent. But I think as time has gone along, and it's something that I've sort of grown into, that it isn't. To me, without sounding too cliche-ish, life is not a destination that you have to, okay, great, now I've gone to Notre Dame, now I'm going to get this particular job and this and this and this. It's more about the process, about sort of where you're being led in life and how you're impacting people on a daily basis through whatever type of work it is, whether I'm working on, selling piano CDs or working as a real estate agent or broker. There's ways to really positively and meaningfully impact people that I quickly learned it didn't matter what I was doing. And so it took a little time, to be honest, as I got into it. But as I started, working as an agent a little bit, I found that I actually enjoyed it.
See, you've brought up this people pleasing or impacting people in a positive way a few different times in our short. We've been recording 10 minutes. And I think when people go out to, they start a career or something, that you can think of things in two ways. You can say, hey, I want to reach my full potential over here, and who cares if people get my way or not. Or you can think the way you kind of are illustrating is, you wanted to impact people in a positive way, whether that's through music or now through real estate. Again, is this making those two choices? Or looking at those two lenses, why are you so deliberate on saying, hey, I want to impact people in a positive way? What do you get out of that?
Part of it is my background. I mean, I think to me, life has always been more than about making a buck, selling another house, or closing another deal. Though I know that, we as a team can do that and do it well, for me it is about, making the most of the time that we've got here to really, be good to others and just, and have a little fun in the process. And I think for me, maybe it's just I don't know whether it's a wisdom or whether it's a looking at life and saying, you know what, there is more to life than sort of selling, continually selling more homes and trying to pad the bank account or whatever. And so that really is sort of what has drove me, especially from a real estate perspective, starting up a team, in 2005, after I had basically been an agent for about a year and a half, and I really wanted to start developing a team that, that wasn't necessarily based on me. So it wasn't, Ryan and Club. It was, I tried to think of a good name, and so I said, well, how about the Minnesota Real Estate Team? Not too revolutionary creative, but nonetheless, it kind of stuck and worked. And so, early on in those first few years of the team, it was really about, starting to develop a team and a group, especially as I sensed among local companies, a lot of agents were migrating to some kind of team setting. They felt like they were an agent at the brokerage, but, they liked their company, but they just felt like they needed a little bit more, and they weren't sure what that was. So they said, hey, maybe I'll join a real estate team.
Got it. Okay. And I do want to talk about your team, but one last question about you personally. So I'm trying to get to know you. I'm trying to get to understand you a little bit. Now, listen, you're the youngest of five. Now, I'm the oldest of five. Now, those again, in terms of temperament, there's very much an older kind of person. The oldest guy is always like more responsible. The youngest one, the baby of the family, normally those are the people who get into trouble. You know what I mean? So I mean, how has being the youngest of five, has that impacted your decisions or your business in any way? Trying to be the impact people.
No, what's funny is that my siblings kind of joke, my brothers and my sister joke that, mom and dad were way more lenient, as time went on. By the time I kind of rolled around, it was like, they're like, things kind of, they weren't as strict, essentially. And so, I think, for the most part, though, it wasn't a big difference, between the, myself and, for example, my oldest brother, Dan, who is, Dan kind of fits the, he was a West Point graduate. He's the, kind of the leader of the family,
right.
Very successful, but very kind of strong personality. And, he's kind of the firstborn of the family. And I think, again, by the time I rolled around, mom and dad were still very supportive, but not, not too overly strict. And so I think that helped a little bit in the sense of just as a kid, you're trying to figure out, hey, what do I want to do in life? What direction do I want to go? And, both my brother Tim and I, when we were at Notre Dame, we spent a year abroad. So I studied a year in Austria, which, again, some people would say, geez, that's ridiculous. I mean, are you going to get into German or what's your deal? But I think both of our parents were very, just, again, more about the life experience, kind of learning, growing, that type of thing. And that may sound kind of cliche-ish to some people, but I think it was really helpful, especially as a kid growing up over time.
Got it. Interesting. Yeah. And again, we were chatting before we started recording, and I have 3 kids, and, it's for us even, it's kind of like the first kid, I was like, oh, hey, don't use scissors. Be careful of scissors. And now my third kid, I'm like, hey, go, you're 6 years old, like go play with a chainsaw. It's like, it's so different for us in terms of,
That's awesome, Toby.
So, okay. So and you get licensed, and you start your team in 2005. Now I'm in San Diego in 2005. It was real estate was beautiful. You could buy anything, and like you made money, month over month over month. And then things started to go bad. So talk to us about starting that team, building that team environment, and how you did it. What was important to you in terms of just creating the team, and then we'll talk about the market.
Yeah. So for me, starting out, I was being a younger agent, looking especially young. It was hard for me, honestly, to find any type of traditional business, to talk to, normal buyers and sellers. They sort of looked at me or talked to me and said, hey, boy, you seem like a great guy, Ryan, but you know what, we're going to go with, Susie down the street, who's been an agent for 10 years, and, she's a seasoned, professional. So it was hard finding business, but for me, I had dabbled a little bit in investment property, having bought a couple investment properties myself, and I found that there was a niche for working as an agent to help advise other real estate investors on how to purchase here in the Twin Cities. I found that there really wasn't, a good brokerage or a good group of agents that were marketing themselves to that sort of buyer pool. And so from my perspective, I started running, a couple little small newspaper ads in the local newspaper here in Minneapolis, and basically just started driving all over the Twin Cities, going to meet anyone and everyone that had interest in investing in real estate. And so I'm driving around, and I'd always have a hour-long cup of coffee or lunch, buy the client lunch and chat. And again, sometimes that led to business. Sometimes it didn't. Sometimes it was, they either couldn't qualify or it wasn't right for them. But a lot of times, again, it led to some type of referral business by just taking the time and sitting down and having a cup of coffee with them. And so, I quickly realized, though, that I could only handle so much. And so as I started to get busier, I wanted to find a couple other agents that I could refer the business to and feel like they could take care of the client, just as well as I could. And, I quickly learned early on, Toby, that, one of the aha moments for me with real estate sales is, a lot of times we like to think as agents, we can do it. or we have the best way to do it, or I do. I have the best way. But the reality of it that I quickly learned is I would generate some leads, pass them to a couple, different agents that I had recruited. And in fact, a lot of times that agent did a better job than I would have in talking to the client, building rapport with the client, and eventually leading the client to one investment property sale, 2, 3, 4, 10, whatever it is. And so I quickly realized that certainly, I had some value and I knew what I was doing, but that, kind of for lack of a better term, the real estate world did not revolve around me. And so I could find other good agents that could represent me well, in fact, sometimes better than I could, and in fact, we could generate more sales that way.
Yeah, look, and that is that's a funny thing. I mean, that is so. First of all, that there's maturity about that. That is something that most. I don't care whether you're starting a tech company or a real estate company. Most people have the Superman syndrome. I can do everything better than everybody else, and I can't let go of the reins.
Yep.
I mean, again, is that something that you think was just innate with you? I mean, do you think that because maybe you were the youngest and you had to rely on other people that versus what's your oldest brother's name? The oldest guy?
Dan.
Dan would struggle with that. Dan would, I believe, I don't know Dan, but I believe Dan would struggle giving that power away. Whereas it came more naturally to you, or is that something you had to learn along the way?
Yeah, I think it was probably a combination of learning it along the way and some natural ability. I think I think as I look at starting out, or as I look back thinking starting out, for me it was a lot of sort of a trust in just a belief that. In these other agents that I was starting to find and starting to recruit, that they could do a great job. And so, from my perspective, and I think, for any other folks listening to this, especially any other, teams or team leaders, I think that's, what a lot of team leaders sometimes can struggle with. They're a very motivated, type A, this is the way the world works, this is how I've been successful in business, and then, trying to find agents or working with agents if they don't exactly fit or conform to what you expect for them to be successful, it can be very frustrating. And I think my approach in again, as we're building the team, I'm adding agents, it was sort of looking at it more like a I can use the analogy of, say, maybe a football team or a pro team or whatever, and finding different players and finding, hey, they may not all be a Peyton Manning or the next star player, but they may have a lot of really good quality skill sets, and as a result, you try to find them, you recruit them, and then over time you kind of build them up. And so yeah, it's interesting. It's interesting that you say that, but I think it's probably kind of a combination of both.
Okay, I mean that's fair for sure. And look, I would agree with it. I mean, Gary Keller talks about that kind of thing all the time, right? Putting the right people on the right seat on the bus. If some guy's a mechanic, maybe he's not the guy that should be driving or navigating. So I want to talk about two things, and both of these, you have this ability, right? Number one, you're able to find these investors to sit down with, and you're now able to find good people to recruit. What are you doing? Like, how are you so good at, if you want investors, you go out and find them and then you're having lunch with them. How did you do that? Because I think a lot of people in my audience, want to build a business that is very much focused on investors. I know you said you've put out classified ads, but I mean, what else did you do? Yeah,
for me, starting out, I literally had a little classified ad that I ran in the Star Tribune here, the main newspaper. I think the ad read something like, "Want to learn how to buy investment property?" ? And then I just put my name, phone number, and brokerage disclosure, and then the phone just started to ring. And
wow.
As I was starting to meet some people, I also realized, again, this was again, 11 years ago, that, from a web presence, I needed to have a solid-based web presence that, if someone emailed me, someone called me, I could send them, hey, here's my website, here's some information on how I work with investors, and a little bit about my personal background. And a lot of it for me was I had experience. So I had been through the process of buying investment properties. I was still actively buying investment properties. So I think it's easier as an agent to say, look, invest in real estate when you see a gal or guy who's doing it themselves, and someone not only who's doing it themselves, but who's actually, will take some time to sort of show you the ropes. And so that was my approach, is really spending a lot of time with these various investors at various stages to, again, help them find properties. I even went a step further and said, look, I'll even help you rent the property out as well through my expertise and techniques that I've used personally. And, what happened, again, is I ended up getting a lot of repeat clients, and that led to referrals, that led to agents. Actually, a number of my original clients are now agents on the team with me, which is interesting. But, I think, like you have done a lot, Toby, throughout your life and your great, background and a lot of your success. Again, it's about finding a niche.
Yeah.
Finding a niche and not focusing on, focusing on your weaknesses and saying, look, okay, Ryan, you're a young guy. Nobody wants to work with you. It's saying, okay, what can I do? I've got experience with investment property. There's a niche. I'm going to give it a shot and just go for it. And again, part of it is just taking a risk and just trying it, whether it's some marketing, some advertising. That's half the battle.
Yeah.
You have to be willing to take that risk. Otherwise, it just, you just don't move forward.
I 100% agree. What's funny, Ryan, is that, with that approach, putting out this ad, you're teaching people along, at different stages, right? Maybe somebody's done it once or never done it in terms of investing, and maybe another guy's done it 15 times. People build, people do that kind of thing, go do seminars. Those are whole companies that people take on the road, man, and go from New York to California. Did you ever consider that?
Yeah, no, I did. And it's funny because even in our ongoing, to this day, we do ongoing investment property seminars. And part of my seminar or the pitch that we're giving to the attendees is, you've probably all been courted at one point by sort of the late night infomercial or the person selling books, tapes, coaching, this sort of thing. And again, nothing against that type of route, but my experience was, as a new investor, I subscribed to a lot of that stuff. I spent a lot of money on books and tapes, and my wife, who perhaps is a little bit more practical sometimes than I am, she said, look, Ryan, you've been spending all this time buying books, tapes, going to seminars, but you know what? You still don't own any investment property. What am I missing here? Why are you going for 3 to 4 days to Idaho to learn from the guru of gurus who's going to? And so it was interesting that I think, over time it helped sort of design our seminar and our approach that we take with real estate investors, to kind of a no frills, hey, we're not, there's no credit card machines at the back of the room, but we're going to actually show you how this works based upon our real life experience.
Yeah. Wow. Interesting. You could have done a TV show. You still can do a TV show.
Actually, no, you know what? I do a little radio show here locally, and my co-host that I do the show with, he likes to joke that I've got a face for radio, so I'm not sure if that TV show would be such a good idea.
Oh, come on, man. Yeah, I know. Look, I know you do that radio show, which is really cool. And this is totally unrelated, man. And I might hijack the route we were taking, but so I know you work. Do you zero base that, the cost of that? Do you zero base with other vendors?
Yeah, it's pretty close. It's still it's not quite to that point, but we do have a number of long-term partners that we have with us on the show. but we're we're on a good local station here, so it's of course, as with all types of advertising, it gets expensive over time, and there can be annual price increases, and so it's close, but it's not quite to that point.
Yeah, well, that's fine. I mean, okay, so okay, that's how you found investors. That's how you do. What about finding good people to put on your team, right? Some of these people are better at nurturing relationships than maybe you are. How do you go about that?
Yeah, the key, in my humble opinion, with real estate teams is providing value. Mm-hmm. So as the team leader, looking at yourself in the mirror, jotting down on a piece of paper, 3, 4, 5, 6 bullet points and saying, look, why would this agent from ABC Company work with me? What's in it for them? And why would they not only work with me, but most importantly, for those listeners, as we can all empathize, why will they decide to stay with me year after year after year? And that for me was, as I started, that was the goal, was saying, look, okay, I want to create a structure that's fun. First of all, I'm a big believer in having fun, laughing, just enjoying the day-to-day of it. So I wanted to create a fun environment, but I wanted to create an environment that the agent actually benefited more so than from where they're at. And I think that sort of mindset, from my perspective, has been helpful over time in finding good agents. Because let's face it, as you talk to agents, when agents look at companies, they look at brokers, they naturally people say, okay, what's in it for me? And so as I started to meet new agents and try to recruit new agents, that's the angle that I really pushed on is, okay, what's in it for this agent? What is the structure that I can create, whether it's leads? Are they motivated by leads? Are they motivated by a aggressive commission structure that that can sort of best the competition? Are they interested in more training, more support? Finding out what language they speak, and then listening. You can think about it, Toby, when you've had interviews with, or you meet somebody, you may have that one friend that, God, you love talking to them, but you just can't get a word in edgewise. And I think from my perspective, one thing I found when recruiting agents, the key is to listen. Yeah. It's not about me. It's not about the Minnesota real estate team. It's not about how great and we are and this and that. It's about listening, asking questions, and finding out what language they speak. What is it that they're looking for, and then really firmly believing that you as a team leader, as a broker, can provide that value and sort of lift up their business from being part of the team.
I agree with everything. I think listening is important. I think some of the times, look, here's the thing that I've learned on this show is that, with a disc profile, for example, me, I'm 99D, 99I. Now, most people think that to be a successful real estate agent, you need to be that outgoing, life of the party guy. And I found out that's not the case. You can be, not outgoing and still be very, very successful. In terms of listening, I'm sure you've met some of those people where you go, man, I really like this person. I think they have talent, but if I don't talk, nobody's going to say anything here. You know what I mean? You know what I'm talking about. You've met these people. Would you, or can you see past that again? Like in terms of your maturity, can you see past that, non-outgoing in this, but recognize they have talent for real estate?
Yeah, that's a really good question, Toby. And I think over time, I've come to two big things that I look at with a new potential agent, or that I try to determine over time. And one of them is something that you can't really change. It's who are they? Are they outgoing? Are they kind of quiet? Are they naturally interested in others? Are they all about talking about themselves? What makes up their DNA? And I guess what I mean by that is I can think of agents, for example, that maybe they're a little bit more introverted, and they're not the life of the party, the outgoing. Everybody wants to talk to them, but they have the second quality, and the second quality is just basic, consistent, day-to-day work ethic.
Yeah.
And as simple and as sort of kind of, as simple as that sounds, from my perspective, that is the second piece of the puzzle from a finding an agent perspective. That the guy or gal that may be lacking a little bit in the personality area, I mean, for lack of a better term, may have a really strong, consistent day-to-day effort. And you know what? They can be outstanding agents, and in fact, a lot of times they are, and they sell at a certain level. I think in order to be, a superstar, if you will, a lot of times you see both of those combinations. You see the gal, that's got just the great personality, she's outgoing, fun to be around. People like her, but she also is just a heck of a hard worker. And it's really interesting, Toby, because I look at some of the best agents on our team, and a lot of them grew up with some type of farming background. I grew up in a smaller kind of farming community. Again, my dad wasn't a farmer, but having friends who were farmers, the gals and guys that grew up working, they get into a business like this and remarkably successful. And so, it's hard to, when you're meeting a new agent, you don't know, do they have that, are they motivated to get out and put in an 8-hour workday, or are they not? Because, again, some people, frankly, are not. And, again, my approach is no problem. If you're not interested and you're not really feeling called to do this, go do something else. If you're not really motivated to be a real estate agent, don't do it. And I think people respect that over time. I'm not just trying to kind of find everyone and their mother who has a real estate license.
Right. And look, for those people, those people who have that farming background, they probably love real estate because they know what it's like to, get up at 6 a.m. and it's freezing or it's hot, and they're like, oh, you know what? I don't want to do that anymore, man. I'd rather make phone calls in an air-conditioned office. For people out there in the audience and they're thinking about building a team and they're like, because they want to model you. At what stage can people, start to hire, go out and start to build a team? Whether that's, and I'm not talking about having a VA. I mean, that is a piece of a team, but I'm talking about, a buyer's agent or somebody that's going to generate business for them. Maybe even an ISA.
Yeah, I think Toby, the question I always ask myself and team members, and I'll say, what is the best use of your time daily? There's a lot of different things each one of us could do in this real estate business that frankly need to get done. But I think sometimes what we all need to do is take a step back and say, okay, before I spend another 12-hour workday doing everything and all the million details involved with my real estate business, how about I step back a second? Let's turn my phone off for an hour or two. Let's look at my business. Let's examine it and say, look, what are the items that I should be doing and what should I be delegating out? And I think, from a agent's perspective, adding an agent or two to help you with leads, to help with whether it's holding open houses, starting to build that framework of a team. I wouldn't be too hard on yourselves, again, that you have to have some massive amount of lead flow. A lot of agents are just looking for somebody that they like, that they trust, and someone that can kind of help guide them as they start out in the business. Because let's face it, this can be an incredibly lonely business, especially as you're starting out. And, a lot of agents are, we're self-employed, so they're kind of doing their own thing. And so even, I think if you're at that point where you're feeling overworked, you're feeling pushed, gosh, it's just too much, and you have a hard time giving up the business or the commission dollars, I would say, don't look at it that way. Look at it from, sort of take control of your life, of your time, and find that agent or two that can help you out, that can give you a little bit more time to not, feel like you're just drowning in the day-to-day aspect of this business. Because, again, as we know, this job can eat you alive if you don't really set yourself and your structure up to avoid that.
Yeah, no, I love it. That's a great answer. So let's get into, you said, well, don't be too hard on yourself if you don't have enough leads. Now, having leads, I don't think is a problem for you. You're the unicorn. In fact, I was just hanging out with, I'm pretty good friends with Bob Corcoran. I was hanging out with him last week. And I said, "Hey Bob, who do you know that has broken the 1,000 transaction mark?" And he's like, I'm going to tell him about you because I don't think he doesn't know who you are. I don't think. And he said, "I don't know anybody." And Mark Spain from Keller Williams did 900 and something, and that was from a hedge fund partner that he has. But how did you do it? What do you do? I know. Talk to us about how you get leads and what was the thing that pushed you over that 1,000 transaction mark.
Yeah, for us, a lot of times, from a business perspective, we don't really do very little, if any, hedge fund, or sort of larger institutional buyers. We did a little bit of REO, but not a lot. Really, the majority of our business is traditional buyers and sellers. It always has been. I mean, since I first started the team. Almost every year, 3 out of 4 of our sales are buy-side sales. Doesn't mean that we don't carry a lot of listings, like everybody, of course, but we do. But it's interesting. Almost 3 out of 4 are buy-side sales. And from a lead perspective, as I started to form the team and grow the team, I realized that was a very important piece of the puzzle for a vast majority of agents, having a broker or a team that could offer you legitimate leads. And so, I invested heavily in a lot of website, a lot of search engine optimization based tools, obviously doing the radio show, doing print advertising, and also, setting up relationships with various local whether it's individual agents or team leaders that were generating leads and calls and whatnot off their listings, but maybe they were too busy to handle it themselves. And so my role was going to them and saying, "Hey, look, we've got this great team of agents all over the Twin Cities. We're going to follow up. We're going to pay you a healthy referral fee. And in fact, we're even going to put it into our CRM system, just a system we just call the pipeline. A friend of mine and I developed it over time that we just tag it as one of their leads, and then they end up, when the file closes, they end up getting paid the commission. And so a lot of these various agents, I would set up relationships with them. And again, not just RE/MAX folks, really all the various companies, brands. A lot of agents, heavy hitters, just maybe didn't have a system in place to really follow up with this. And so for me, that's a big theme of kind of what I try to do in a day-to-day business setting is to make it good for both parties. In this case, you've got an REO agent listing a lot of stuff. They're not with our team, but they don't have a good system to follow up with their leads. If I can go to him or her and say, "Look, this is what we can do," and dial it in, and knock it out of the park, that it'll mean more and more leads. And so that's sort of what's happened over time. We've developed a lot of those relationships. We've developed more lead sources. And then as a result, I'm kind of continually recruiting to find that next great agent. And so, getting over that hump, the 1,000 mark hump for us, it's just been a heck of a team effort. I'm just a small part in the process, but it's a lot of really good agents, Toby. That's the key. I mean, if you want to build just a mega team, it's about finding the right people and enhancing their business, and then it works. And I think that's been my goal.
Yeah, and the other side of it, if you can build that culture that you were talking about, if you can build this culture that talks to their needs, whatever that is, right? You said training or commission or whatever. Those people become your brand ambassadors, and it becomes then you have teams of people recruiting and spreading the message about, Ryan Oneil and the Minnesota real estate team. Now, I want to talk more about leads, but because, look, 1,200 transactions, you're closing 4 deals a day. You're getting 4 paychecks a day, man. That is unbelievable.
Yeah, again, for me, and probably to a fault, Toby, I've never, I think it's just, again, the way we grew up, but I've never really focused intensely on the dollar. And I think it's easy to in an industry like ours, and I certainly don't fault anyone that's their motivation. But I think what happens is really when you focus on people and how you can really elevate business, both of your businesses kind of collectively, some pretty powerful things can happen. And that's where, again, I've been fortunate enough to meet a lot of random agents from different companies, from wherever, that, before you know it, they're part of the team. That they want to hop on board, they want to get going. And so I think, without sounding too general or too cliche-ish, it is that less focus on, what's the gross commission, my total going to be this year. I've never really, that isn't the way my brain thinks. It's been more of, how can we find the right people, and how can we sell just a ton of homes, and most importantly, help a lot of people buy and sell real estate.
Man, look, we have to start wrapping up. And you're a guy that I think I could talk to you for a couple hours. But but listen,
just wrap it up, Ryan.
Wrap it up. No, so help me understand real quick, and for people as well. So, if your brain doesn't work on just pure dollars, which a lot of people's brains do, man. I mean, my brain doesn't focus like I'm in the middle between you and the money guys, but. And it sounds like when you go and hire people, it sounds like for the most part, you said it over and over, new agents. So it seems like you don't pick up people to your team for the most part that they're new to the industry, and you train them. Do I have that wrong?
It's been a mix.
Okay.
It has really been a mix. Some new people, and a lot of agents who have maybe been at a company or two, and it hasn't worked out the best. And maybe they're attracted by the leads. Maybe it's the marketing that we're doing. Maybe it's some of the training. But we've actually picked up a lot of people over time from agents who've been in the business a while, who are looking for kind of a change. And so I think something that all team leaders, brokers, who may be listening, something we all struggle with is, again, retention. In keeping people on board, and why would someone want to stay on board? And I think, that's just something that on a daily basis, I just, you have to be able to look in the mirror and say, look, what are you providing? Mm-hmm. And is it legit? Is it good? Is it honest? Is it fair? Is it transparent? With your leads, is the passing system transparent so people know how they can get more leads? How can they get less leads? All those sorts of things. It's a continually a work in progress, but it's certainly fun.
What is it? Okay, just to kind of wrap this up. So in terms of those agents, you get a mix of new and one or two companies. What is the thing that they want to see? Is it leads? Is it better splits? Is it more training? Is it more support? Like in general, like what's thematically? What is the one thing that people want from you, or where it's a win-win?
I think it's a combination of the leads, but I think the other thing that I've really come to notice over time, almost more than anything, Toby, and it may sound corny, but the agent wants to know that their team leader, their broker, frankly cares about them, and looks at them more than just the dollar sign or the commission check or the next deal or whatever. I think, and as I think of different team leaders, brokers here in the Twin Cities that I really respect, there's a few different people that I can think of that you think of those guys and you're like, he's a really good guy, or she's a fantastic person. I can see why people love working with her, because at the end of the day, it's not about just trying to, again, get as many people on board as you can. And this is real life. Lots of things happen. Some good, some bad, and I think when you genuinely have your people's best interest at heart, it's hard. Again, it's hard. There's ups, there's downs, there's different things. But I think if you try to do that, and people know that, I find that that's what makes a lot of agents, most agents, really tick, and want to stay with a real estate team or a real estate company.
Got it. Well, I mean, look, Ryan, you're a super nice guy, and I'm sure that everybody in your team knows that you care about them, and I'll bet you, man, there's lots of late nights where people are coming to you talking about their marriages, their kids, like I'm sure you're somewhat of a camp counselor.
It's funny because it can be a 24/7 type of job, and as a team leader, you have to determine, okay, what are my hours going to be, and how is this going to work? And I'm probably available to a fault, but I think at the end of the day, for me, when I got into this, I kind of go 110% with anything. It's just the way that I am, and so I just said, look, I'm going to really give it a go and do the absolute best that I can. And I think that's people know that. They know they can call me. I'm going to pick up my phone, their email. I'm going to get back to them. That's important. Those little things done daily, day after day after day after day.
Yeah.
It's consistency, and that's ultimately, I think, what has helped our team grow over time.
Oh, I'm sure, and I got to imagine too that sometimes your wife goes, well, what about me? What about me, Ryan? Yeah. I'm right here, and anyhow. I've been there, man. I've been there.
Absolutely. And in fact, Toby, before, again, I want to thank you for the kind offer to be on the show today. Now, rumor has it, I wanted to throw this out for your listeners as well. I've been doing some research on you, and I've heard as well that you have a fabulous voice. And in fact, perhaps there may be some future singing coming from your direction.
Where did you hear that?
I got you, man. I got you. I'm waiting for that next album. I mean, you're killing it with this industry.
Oh my gosh.
I'm ready for you to get into. I think it's time, Toby.
No, man, no. Hey, look, I'll tell you offline the thing that I'm really working on. But really quick, if you can. So people come to you, your team, because they want leads and they want that support. They want to know that somebody cares about them. For my listeners, where should they throw? They don't have huge budgets like you. What do you see is working in your business, or what do you see? Where can people go out? What do you think the low-hanging fruit is in terms of getting real estate leads for them?
Yeah, I don't know right now if there's any really low-hanging fruit, if you will. I think so much of focusing on the relationship-based stuff that we can do on a daily basis, the open houses, the handwritten cards. And phone calls to our past clients, the day-to-day interactions with the barista at Starbucks, the person at the checkout line at the, that sounds corny to some people, but I tell you, some of the best agents I know are those. That's they're out there in their daily interactions, whether it's their kids' school, the church, different things. Really focusing on that human element of it. And for me, that's what I sort of challenge our team members. Every day, they should have at least one physical meeting with somebody about real estate. And, again, you can do, there's a lot of the online stuff you can do, but I think don't miss, the most important piece, the free stuff, that day-to-day interaction that can turn your year from a ho-hum average one to an additional closing or two each month. And again, those referrals that you base on that. A lot of the best agents on our team, that's the core of their business, and they don't they spend very little if anything, marketing-wise on other types of lead generation.
Got it. I love it. I love it. You know, and I would say for people, you know, if you're going to eat lunch, man, you know, there's a fantastic book. It's Never Eat Alone, right? I mean, if you can't, you know, if you have to eat alone, eat somewhere where you're approachable. Don't have a book or don't always be in your phone and have your name tag on. Let people know what you do. It's all passive marketing. You know, have that sign that says Ryan Oneil, you know, real estate on the side of your car. I mean, yeah, one. That's great. That's great. That's free and that's easy. Everybody can do that. Speaking of books, Ryan, here's one of the last questions I ask is this: I'm an aspiring agent. I have $25. What book should I go buy today?
What book? That's a tough one, Toby.
Come on.
Come on, man.
I want to know how you think. I want to know what you. Yeah, I'm curious.
My wife hammers me. She's like, Ryan, you're almost turning 40. You need to read more. I would say one book. You know, I'm nothing immediately is coming to my mind. You know, I do a lot of reading online, you know, from just different things that pop up, you know, in and around Google, just checking out different things. I mean, I think, you know, some type of sales, sort of understanding people. You know, again, I feel like I'm striking out a little bit because I haven't read anything.
Well, you've knocked it out of the park. That's okay. You've knocked it out of the park the whole way. I'll tell you what I thought you were going to say. There's two books just from talking with you that I thought I thought it was going to be one of these two, and I don't know if you've read them. One is 5 Dysfunctions of a Team, and the second one is 7 Levels of Communication by Michael Mayer.
I haven't read either one, but I've heard of Michael's book, but I haven't read either, and you know what? I probably should read more.
Yeah. Well, look, you know, you don't. So here's. I asked that question because I have a link. I have a free link. And everybody can get a free copy. And this is Audible. So I would suggest for you, Ryan, you should listen to 5 Dysfunctions of a Team because you do have a team. And you can get a free copy of that book just using audibletrial.com/superagentslive. So you don't have to read. You can listen to it. Hey, man, I really appreciate you coming on the show. You're one of the few people that you know, I would like to have back in the future and dig in. You know, look, I'd like to keep track of, you know, how you're growing, you know, 1275 in 2013 to who knows what in 2014 and 15 and beyond. So, Ryan, I appreciate you coming on. I want to say thank you. I encourage my guests to reach out and to say thank you. And look, I'm sure you're always looking for great people. So where can people find you?
Yeah, you know what? One last thing I wanted to offer. I'm a big believer in giving back. You know, any agents who are listening from whatever company, you know, that you're with now, and you want to reach out by phone, email. Phone, best way, or email is just ryan@mnrealestateteam.com. Our website is mnrealestateteam.com, or our phone is 952-649-1456, 952-649-1456. However, I can be of help. I'm a big believer in doing that, and you know, whatever stage of the process you're at as an agent. And certainly, again, I appreciate the kind offer, Toby. You're doing a great job. People love listening to you, and keep up the awesome work.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it. And look, for everybody, if you're driving, just go to the site, superagentslive.com, look for Ryan Oneil in the search box, and all this stuff will be in the show notes. So, all right, man. Hey, let's talk soon.
Yeah, thanks again, Toby.
See you, bud.
Let's go.